You're listening to the One Step Deeper podcast with your host, Jimmy Moore and Brittany Davis. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com.
Can you see me now?
Yes. Yeah, how are you?
And too bad you can see me now. Self-deprecating humor. It must have happened in my childhood. Maybe we'll dig into that someday. Wait.
Yes.
Wait, maybe freaking today. So, guys, today we have probably the most interesting podcast we have done so far. Because today is going to be like anything we've ever done before. Everything about the format that you love about our show, the banter back and forth, and it's not happening today. Sorry. But for a good reason, because you've heard Brittany talk about, you know how I do that thing with people and they come over and I question them and I dig deeper. It'd be cool to show people that. And I'm like, oh, okay, you want to do that with ducking. And so, yeah, we came up with this idea for episode 53, you guys, Brittany doing her one step deeper thing. And that's what we have on tap today. She called me yesterday and she's like, I'm kind of scared about it. I'm always scared. I should be the one being scared, not you.
Well, like I've never done this live. I mean, obviously neither have you. You and I have had these kinds of conversations one-on-one, just you and me on the phone. And I've done this with people in my home, my friends, my family, anybody that will let me pretty much. I like to do this. And for a long time, I said, I don't really know what to call it. And I think the more comfortable I get with doing it, the more it's just emotion work. Like I just pull out and name things that people struggle on their own to name. And so that's kind of, I'm a little nervous because like you said, we've never done this on the show before, but I mean, I'm looking forward to it because I guess you're the one that's going to be all vulnerable and stuff today. So.
Well, and I'm being vulnerable, that does not make me nervous. Just, I have no idea what's coming, which, when I'm interviewed on other podcasts, I always say, oh, ask me anything. And now I'm like, please don't literally ask me anything. But no, ask me anything. Seriously, it's still there. But yeah, this is going to be interesting, guys. Brittany has done a lot of this work on herself. And so these are the questions you dug one step deeper on yourself on. So now you help other people kind of delve. And the good news is I've actually done a lot of work on myself as well, not nearly to the extent that you have. So I wonder what you're going to uncover. So I'm kind of anxious to see what happens here today. So this will be interesting today, you guys. And I'm kind of excited about it and kind of nervous. Not nervous, but I don't know. We'll just see what happens. Come along for the ride. OneStepDeeperPodcast.com is the website. Go check us out over there. That is the official website for all the past episodes. If you've missed any of the first 52 episodes, go catch up because we've got a lot of great content there. If you like going one step deeper, we do debut these on Sundays at 4 p.m. over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword search, One Step Deeper. You'll find the show there. We also put it up on Instagram video as well as Facebook for those of you that prefer to use those websites. Again, look up One Step Deeper. You'll find the show. Mondays, it is a traditional podcast. Go check it out. Wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Alexa. And all of those are the ways that you can check us out. We do put up a little tidbit, like 15-minute little of the show so that you can see what it's like. It's going to be interesting what 15 minutes I do from this show. But because if I do it in the middle, we'll be like, what are they talking about? But we're going to find out real soon. But go check those out a couple days before the podcast airs. I generally try to get up around Friday or Saturday. I know Miss Thang here puts it up on Sundays on hers. Living Low Carb Man, also One Step Deeper podcast. On social media, and then she is at becoming.brittanylee over on Instagram. And then finally, go leave us a review. If you like this meandering, long chats about all kinds of topics and you find it interesting, go tell everybody else how interesting it is. We would love your review. Okay, guys, episode 53, unlike anything we've done in over a year of doing these podcasts, I'm literally going to shut my mouth and let this little lady do her one step deeper thing. Brittany, it's all yours.
Oh, goodness. I was telling Jimmy yesterday that I was a little bit nervous about this because I mean I've done the show on my own with people that I love, but like when Jimmy's here, usually Jimmy kind of takes the reins. You know, he's the podcast expert in my opinion, and sometimes I feel like I'm along for the ride. But today we're gonna test my own personal development journey in doing this, and kind of it's not even an interview, it's what it is. Like, this is why we struggle so hard with coming up with a name for this, because it's like, what is this? It's just Brittany doing her one step deeper thing. And so really the best way to open it up is just Jimmy and I have a conversation like we have every single day. And like when we, like how our friendship started, it was really just us talking like this, doing what it is that we're about to do. And so I just want to remind everybody that emotions aren't bad. They're not good. They're not bad. They're not negative. They're not positive. Emotions are just something that we feel every single day. And they're shaped by our thoughts. They're shaped by our environment. They're shaped by society and the things that we go through. And a lot of times, you know, Jimmy, I talk about childhood trauma a lot here because we have experienced that so much. But things that we feel on a daily basis, so much is tied into childhood, but everyday experiences shape what it is that we feel. And not just what we feel, but our feelings become, I've said this before in the podcast, our feelings become our thoughts, and our thoughts become our feelings. And then then we turn into these reactionary states where we think this is our personality because we've reacted to this trauma for so long. We've never dealt with the emotions from it. We become this person, and then people like me come along and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not your personality trait. That's a reaction to something that you went through as a child. Yeah. Or that's a reaction to something that you've been through as an adult. And so that's kind of the things I want to dive through with Jimmy. We have done this work, but we're going to do it again here for you guys to experience what it is that I do.
We've never done it in front of a bunch of eyeballs watching us. So.
Exactly. So, Jimmy, just pretend like I don't know any of your story. And we're yes, I know we're best friends, but like, tell me something that stands out in your childhood. Like just any story. It can be seen as positive, seen as negative, just like what is coming to your mind when you think about childhood?
That is a loaded question because I have a million stories from childhood. I mean, are we going to do BD or AD, before dad or after dad? Because dad is a whole nother. Literally. Okay, I got one for you. The first one that popped in my mind when you asked childhood story, it was the 8th grade. I had to be, I don't think I've ever told you this story either. I had to be maybe 12, maybe 11. Mm-hmm. And the 8th grade, they were having a dance at the school. And I had my eye on this girl at school. I forget her name now. So that's how memorable it was. But I remember asking mom if I could take this girl to the dance, the 8th grade dance. And she said flat out no. Now, remember, she was a single mom at the time and was not married. And so she was just raising 3 kids. So here I was saying, okay, I'm going to test her will. So I played the emotional card and cried. And I said, but I never get to do anything. I remember very vividly where I was in our house in Pensacola, Florida. And I was just like pitching a fit just to see if she would capitulate. It wasn't because I actually wanted to go at that point. Once she said no, okay, I guess I'm not going. But once I saw that she said I couldn't, I was going to see if I could make her change her mind to could. Yes, it was horrible in hindsight, but I remember it because I'm like, whoa, my mom is easily pushed over. It was like the first time I really realized what a pushover she was. Well, I whined and complained and, oh, I never get to do anything. Oh, you've been through divorces and, oh, this would mean the world to me. Oh, and finally she said, okay, you can go. And I said, no, I'm good. And I never went, but it was the whole idea of, could I push to get my way? And in that instance, I did. I didn't really want my way. I don't know why I remembered that story, but that story was very, very vivid. That it taught me that my mom was more of a pushover than I realized. She was a strong woman, but it also explained her choices in men in life. All of the men she chose weren't very great. And so I was yet another man in her life that was able to push her around a little bit.
Yeah. How much of the experience, with your dad, like your dad and mom being together, how much of that do you remember? Was there a lot of memory there of like when your mom and dad were together? Because you
Oh,
were really young.
I was not even 2 years old when they divorced. So no, I have no recollection of the two of them. My brother Kevin, 4 years older, he may have had a little bit of a recollection. I remember him telling me stories about dad ran a milk route, and then mama was at home raising him. But no, I have zero recollection of my mom and dad being together.
Yeah, I asked because, I mean, even if they weren't, physically together, there could still have been moments, phone calls or face-to-face
Oh,
situations where
what was
you
their dynamic?
saw how your dad treated. Yeah,
Is that okay? Yeah, I was mimicking my dad because my dad treated me like shit. I remember one time, another story. My dad had court-ordered custody, so there would be, was it 2 weeks at Christmas time, 1 week for spring break, and 6 weeks during the summer. Every single year, me and my brother Kevin, we were the two full-blooded siblings of Judy Ann and JD. Mama was upset about something. He said something to her, like real snarky. He was very sarcastic in the way he spoke, and especially around my mom. And so mama laid into him. Mama's like, "You're not going to come in here and talk bad about me. And I left you for that reason." And there he was, just kind of blowing it off. Why are you so upset? And totally gaslighting her and everything. But yeah, I observed, and like I'm conscientious of that now, by the way, that
right.
I observed how to be a man from a not man, from a man that small dick syndrome. I'm sorry. It just, that's what it was. And he couldn't, forgive the expression for those of you that were offended, but he didn't know how to handle his own emotions. And so here I am looking up sort of to him for what being a man is, and saw him treat women bad, which as an adult man, I've done nothing but try to treat women with the greatest of respect. That's the one thing my mom did impart on me. You treat women with respect. And it was after that incident with the 8th grade dance thing that I think we had that kind of conversation after the fact of, hey, treat women well, and you'll go far in life.
Yeah. I mean, so much of what happens in childhood, you can go one way or the other. You can repeat the pattern or you can break it, but kind of fumble. I mean, let's be honest, in my own life, I watched the patterns of my parents, and I was just so big-headed that I am not going to live that way. But then, and you've done this as well, where you kind of fumble of my only experience in life, my only influence in life was so far from what I want to be and so far from who I want to be that you kind of get in this, I have no idea how to be who it is that I am.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of go through this identity crisis and you find anything to attach yourself to. And
Yes.
Jimmy, what did you attach yourself to?
Oh my gosh. Like, let's ponder that just a second, because that's a profound. I had no direction becoming an adult. I went out of the house, and since you don't know anything about me, quote unquote, in my teenage years, I had the shit beat out of me almost every day. I was berated for 3.5 years. I was basically told I was a nothing. I'm not going to amount to anything. No girl will ever want you, all these things. So I go out on my own, and next thing you know, I'm in college. It's so funny. I went to college to escape, not to get an education, but to escape my abuse. I did get an education, and yes, same for you as well. So, and so I flailed. I was so awkward. I remember learning like basic life things in the school of hard knocks, like hearing other kids talk, and I'm just going, wait, that's normal? And looking at other guys, especially, wait, guys do that? Like, I had no idea. My dad didn't prepare me to be a man. He didn't prepare me to be an adult. And my mom was oblivious to all of this. And so I guess she thought that dad had taken care of it when he had not. So what did I attach myself to? Literally anything to feel valued. literally anything to have worth. So I poured myself into my academics, did very well. Poured myself into working hard for pennies, and did that very well. There was one point in my college career where I had 20 hours of classes and I was working 3 jobs. One of them full time at Shoney's. I was working probably 50 to 60 hours a week just at Shoney's, plus the 20 hours a week of classes. Plus, it was the year the Census Bureau was happening, so I did part-time some census stuff. I had one other job. I forget what. I was the mail guy at my dormitory, and I got paid for that. And I did all of that at like 18 or 19 years old. I forget exactly when it was, but I was wearing myself ragged because I didn't know anything other than work yourself to death, partly because I had observed that's what my dad did. Again, male role model. You mimic what you see. That's what I mimicked. And I didn't really have anything to attach to. To be honest, I was an attachless, flailing mess. And I would argue it lasted well into throughout my 20s.
Yeah. You know, I have had the privilege of being around 3 specific men, my dad, my husband, and my best friend, who all kind of have this same pattern. And I guess it's why I'm so familiar with the pattern and I see it so clearly in anybody else. You go through these things as a kid and they shape you, specifically in men. Women go through this too, but it's such a man thing to never have value as a child, to never be validated in any of their feelings and anything. Don't feel that. Don't cry, son. That's bad. Quit being a sissy. Suck it up. I mean, how many times do we hear this and push this in society? And then we wonder why we have angry men who never stick around because they don't feel value. And they're told that the only reason why they're valuable is because they go to work. And so then you have these men who work themselves to the ground. Hello, Jimmy, my dad, my husband, they work themselves to the ground to try to feel valuable. And they take on a second job and a third job and a this because they have nothing to attach themselves to except for I'm valuable when I work.
Yeah.
And what kind of message does that send to young men that you're only valuable and you're only valuable in this life to work?
Well, and it's glorified.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to take care of your family. I know you and I have had conversations about Wildman, that he finds that value for himself. I'm going to come back to me in a minute, but this is a good point. He finds that value in himself, that when he's working, that's love. That's love for you. That's love for your girls. And I felt the same way. When I was working, that's me saying I'm a part of something that's meaning something, because I was told I'm never going to amount to anything. So if I'm doing something proactive through work that's meaning something, I'm not meaningless anymore. I was told I would be not valuable, but I'm at least partly valuable to somebody with this work. So anything to get the affection, the love, the connection that I always craved as a teenager, and even as a child, obviously, but especially as a teenager shifting into adulthood, that work became the surrogate father that I never had.
Yeah. Wow. That was a powerful statement. Work replaces, and you can fill in work with anything. We find something to attach ourselves to try to find value. So for me, I actually went that route as well. I excelled in school and pushed myself in school to earn father's love because, I'm watching his patterns. I'm watching what he does. I'm feeling this need to be the best in order to feel loved. Except you've gotten to the end of that. I've gotten to the end of that where I pushed myself and pushed and pushed and pushed, and I really was successful, but I still didn't feel loved. I still didn't feel valuable, because that's the secret sauce here. You're not valuable because of what you do. You're valuable because of who you are. But the problem is you attached who you were into work.
Did you go keto and thought you had to give up wine? Well, let me introduce you to Dry Farm Wines. It is the world's first sugar-free alcohol that is lower than your typical wines, organic, made at local farms that do it the right way. Most of the wines that you buy are from 3 really big companies, loaded with additives and preservatives, so many dozens of those kinds of things. You don't want all that junk in your wine. So go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and they will ship you these wines. And just because you listen to this podcast, Dry Farm Wines is going to give you a bottle in your first order for just 1 cent. Go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and you will get your bottle of wine for just 1 singular penny. Go check them out. Dry Farm Wines, you guys. It's wine o'clock somewhere. Let's go get some wine. And then the problem came into play that when I got out of college and I went into the real workforce, I would always try to be the best at what I did. That was just my goal. And that's nothing wrong with that, by the way, you guys. I think we all should strive to be the very best. Look, I'm a podcaster. I'm trying to be the best podcaster I can possibly be. And I think I'm there. But the problem is in the regular workforce, especially in my 20s, I would always reach one little certain part. And that was the highest I ever got. And I wanted here. And here was available. I'd look up and I'd see there, but for some reason, here's where I stayed. And I didn't understand that. I kept thinking, wait a minute, what more could I do? What's wrong with me? And I felt devalued again all of a sudden. All of the recollections of you're never going to amount to anything because you only stayed here and you want here, but you're never going to amount to anything. It was one of the great things that pushed me out of the normal workforce to go to work for myself because, all right, well, if that's what I want and this is all the regular workforce is going to give me, screw that, tear that down, and let's go shoot for that. And I think when the breakthrough started to happen for me was when I finally started reparenting myself, as we did an episode on, I started believing in myself, in my abilities, believing that I am valuable, that I am worth it, and that I can achieve this. And guess what? Jimmy achieved this, and maybe a little more than what I thought I would. But none of that would have happened nearly to the degree that it did if I didn't have the motivation to want to pursue that. And I don't like the what if game, but I often think, what if I had 2 loving parents that gave a crap about me, that saw the talent that I clearly had even as a teenager, that I would become someday. Could I have gone to greater heights? I don't play that game. I'm glad I'm where I'm at now. I've done very well for myself, and I'm happy. That's the point today too. I am in a really good place mentally, despite what did happen, despite losing a good chunk of my life. I've now redeemed it and making every moment of today count because of that experience. Would I appreciate life like I do now had I not gone through that? I don't know, Brittany.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you're right. I don't like playing the what if game either. I could say, what if my parents had stayed together? I don't like getting into that. I don't like going there either. And I'm not grateful for what happened to me. I'm not grateful for the trauma that was inflicted on me. And I know for you, I would never tell you, be grateful for what happened to you because it made you who you are. No, you are who you are in spite of those things. And that moment that you were just describing was so beautiful. You had gotten to the top of where you could in terms of value in the workforce, and you still saw more for yourself. It is rare for someone who goes through the trauma that you and I went through to have that tiny little, that ability to go, this is great, but I know that there's more and I deserve more.
Can I tell you where it came from? I don't know exactly why, but when I was a kid, I always imagined I would be doing something great. I didn't know what that meant. I had an inkling it would have something to do with talking because I was always drawn to like DJs. I think I've told the story on the show before about Casey Kasem and listening to the top 40 every week and go home after church and listen to the last 35 songs and the way he connected with his audience. I always just was drawn to that. And then even other people, I just always felt like something's going to be used with this And I was always good at English. I always knew I would probably write someday. I just didn't know how or what purpose. And now I know. And I think the work that I'm doing now with this podcast, the work I'm doing with our book, which, by the way, One Step Deeper Journal, The Foundations, coming soon. We've got to pimp that at the beginning. So I think this is the work I was intended to do. The keto stuff was cool. The fasting book, all the things that I wrote, great. And I'm glad that I got to have those experiences and I have that knowledge and I help people even still with those things. But my fire in the belly is this right here. My fire in the belly is helping people take the big pile of crap that they were delivered in their life, either in childhood or in trauma that happened during their adulthood, and turn it into something beautiful. Because it can. And I feel so lucky and blessed today because I could have wound up in prison. I could have killed somebody. I could have gotten addicted to drugs and alcohol. I could have done so many worse things as a response to my trauma, but I never felt compelled to do those things. I always felt compelled to channel that energy into something that could be helpful, because deep down in my heart, I always had that, and no amount of what happened to me could change that. And you're right. A lot of people, they do turn to those destructive behaviors. And for whatever reason, I went the other direction, and I'm glad.
Yeah. And I think destructive can work there as an adjective, but also impulsive. So, I was just I actually did a reel this morning talking about anger is not an emotion, it's a reaction. It's something that I say very often, and anger covers up all of those things. But along with that reactive behavior comes impulsive behavior. You're not thinking through. And so to get to where you are, it took a lot of, and I'm sure you had impulsive thoughts and impulsive things that did come through. I mean, it's difficult to not. I did.
I think that's what held me back in a lot of the jobs that I was in. They saw a little hot-headedness. They saw maybe little bits and pieces of me still dealing with my trauma, but not dealing with it, if you know what I mean. And so in hindsight, that's why I only got to here when I wanted to go to here, because they could see I had to do some work. But I didn't know I had to do work because it's never articulate. This is the thing with trauma. I didn't know I was traumatized until 3 years ago when this beautiful lady on the screen says, you've gone through trauma, right? And it dawned on me, I never dealt with that. And there's people that go through their whole lives, and I see it every day. My own dad, who was my abuser, was abused. And he's in his early 70s now, and he's never dealt with his shit. And he's going to go to his dying grave having never dealt with it. And now he's lived a hard life. He's got all kind of physical problems with his body. I've had no connection with my dad for 3 years because he's refused to deal with his stuff. I have another relationship in my life that I didn't know anything about the trauma this person went through, and it totally ruined our relationship to the point that we don't talk anymore either. And it's just unfortunate that people aren't willing to open up. They need a Brittany in their life to do her thing. I'm trying to do that with people as well, kind of opening their eyes on what we're doing with this podcast and what we're doing with our book, is to try to help people deal with your stuff so that you can get to that point where you stop believing the lies you've been telling yourself.
Right. And I mean, and we've been talking about this recently about narratives and how they shape what we think. And like, I'm so looking forward to the podcasts that are to come, specifically the one next week. It's kind of going to go into what we're talking about today and how we play a part in our own suffering. And, going back to I want to pull it back for a second though and talk about that work ethic. One of the things that I did, this was probably the saddest story I've ever, this thing that I'm doing right here, this emotion work that I'm doing, one of the saddest stories and examples of this that I ever witnessed. And it brought me to tears. And it's pretty difficult. When I'm talking to people about their emotions, obviously I'm moved. Obviously I feel for them, but I don't often get moved to tears. So one of Chris's work friends had come over, and I've told a little bit of this story, but I'm going to go a little bit more into detail. We were talking. He's such a great guy. You know, he reminds me a lot of you, a lot of Wild Man, a lot of my dad. He's just so full of life and joyous, but he doesn't live with his kids. His kids live in another state because he worked and worked and worked and worked because he had nothing as a child. He had zero. He had barely had food. His parents weren't there. They had a bunch of siblings. He really struggled financially. And that was such a part of him. His trauma of what he went through was such a part of him. He refused to let his kids go through that. So what did he do? He poured himself into work. And he branded it as, I'm a family guy. I want the best for my kids. But he didn't live in the same state as his kids. And he didn't live in the same state as his wife. And he lost his marriage. His marriage fell apart, and he was so broken and so sad because he couldn't understand. He's like, I'm giving you everything. I've sacrificed everything. I'm working 16-hour days, 21 days straight.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Love.
Love. Yes.
He thought that was love, and she felt no love from it. Just like Wild Man, same thing. When he goes to work, and you told this story of, please come home, and then he doesn't come home, and you're like, I don't feel loved. And he's like, I'm giving you love. What do you mean? And so there's this disconnect.
Yeah. There's such a disconnect. And actually, by the way, that episode where I was talking about that, and I was kind of complaining about it. I actually got negative, like one of the first negative comments we had ever gotten for the podcast, because somebody was telling me that I was ungrateful, that I should see it and be grateful. Well, I am. And just like his wife was, the guy that went through this, but she wanted her husband. She married her husband. Her kids wanted, or their kids wanted their dad. And so he was kind of breaking down to me about his marriage falling apart. And he was sad about that. And then he got to talking about his kids, and he just lit up. He was just so happy talking about his kids and the life he's been able to, provide for them, even though he wasn't physically there, the sacrifices that he made. And I looked at him, and like, I feel so bad because like, he immediately started to cry. I said, do you realize that they value you higher than the money that you send them? They don't always feel loved by you sending them things and them having the best things. You are who shows them love. And it broke him. He was broken. And like, he was like, you're telling me all this work and all this sacrifice and everything that I've done, everything that I'm killing myself doing this, and they still don't feel loved? He's like, they're going to grow up with trauma? He was so hurt.
But he also probably, and you can tell the rest of the story if you dug into this, but he probably observed his father working hard. And so that's how he learned how to love. Something we talk about a lot here. We mimic what we do what we see. And so if he saw hard work, and that was dad showing love, then what's he going to do? Oh, well, of course. Hard work, long hours away from the kids, wake up at the butt crack of dawn before the kids are up, come home after the kids are in bed. Doesn't matter because I'm loving them by doing what I do. And so it is funny. Not funny, that's the wrong word, but it's predictable. Let's just put it that way. That when you do that and you believe that's love, this is where communication, I think, would be helpful in a spousal situation if the two would talk it out. And I know you've talked to Wild Man. All right, bruh, this is what I need. Like, I know you're working hard, and we're so grateful. Thank you so much. But I need you, and I need you here, and I need you here to see my kids because they're your kids too, and you put them to bed, and da-da-da-da-da. And then when we're off, we're going to make sure we spend quality family time together. And you always do. And I get out of your life on those days, by the way. I just is like, all right, that's Wild Man time. And I step away because I'm very insignificant at that point. But when he's not there and you need help, I'm always happy to help. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But it's shocking when you present it to somebody who's oblivious when that's his expression of love. I don't know that I ever made work my expression of love. It was mine was more my expression of please respect me. And because I never felt respected except when I did a good job of working. And even to this day, I still work for respect, and I have no shame in saying that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually wrote this down. I was kind of thinking I didn't want to prepare for this episode. I wanted it to be completely raw and whatever happened, but I was kind of
It is from me.
pondering. As I was pondering, I know, just because you and I've talked about it so much, that you poured yourself into work to escape the trauma, to escape the pain, and it both came with positives and negatives, and we don't have to dive into the downfall of a relationship in your life, but it did lead to that, and it was, and not even the demise of it, it was more of the escape of it. You turned to work.
Well,
Yeah. And same thing with your parents.
It was when I stepped away from the work that I realized the relationship had long been gone. It wasn't that
Right.
the work made the relationship go away. No, the relationship went away and the work became my new partner.
Yes, your work was what you poured yourself into to escape the reality that you probably knew far ahead. But we won't get into that. So I want to respect that boundary there. But something that happens too in men, and I've seen this in my dad, is I work, therefore I deserve. And it gets tricky because I don't want to call anybody out or say that they're bad, but my dad in particular has had a really bad habit of saying, I worked all day. I deserve to come home and feel loved by you doing this, this, and this. So basically what it turns into, I earned your love by doing this. Except people like me who value that work, but I value quality time more than acts of service. Let's be honest. Loving somebody through working is an act of service kind of love, whereas I just want to be with you. When you and I talk on the phone, that means something to me. When Wildman and I are sitting next to each other having a good, deep conversation, that means something to me. Jimmy's bought me gifts before, a $5 coloring book, and even though I said thank you, there wasn't an exchange there, and I wanted to dive into this too with you of how do you feel loved, Jimmy? Like what is it? And you don't even have to do a love language. Like what is it that somebody can do that makes you feel loved? Have you ever explored that?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm on some dating apps now and they're like, describe yourself. And it's just like, all right, or describe what you're looking for and da-da-da. I was like, I just want to be respected. I want to feel cared about. And I want somebody who acts like they care about me and wants to be cared for. Like, I'm not real complicated when it comes to love. It's like I think our relationship is a friendship love because you give me all those things. You care about me. You respect me. We disagree on a lot of things. You still respect me, and give me that. But yeah, like love is not hard for Jimmy. Just give me my comeuppance as a human being, and I feel like my whole life, a lot of the people in my life, friends, family, they pretended like they loved when it was convenient. But then when push came to shove and life got tough, I saw they never loved me. And this includes some major people in my life that I had to let go. And they're no longer in my life because they never really loved me. And I never realized it until I recognized what my love desire was. It's not hard. Respect me, care about me, give a damn about me. And I never felt any of that from a lot of people that supposedly were supposed to love me. A lot of people ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good, deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it. using the nanotechnology so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out.
Yeah, that's painful, to be around the people that you were supposed, and I've actually recently talked about this as well. We react to people's love for a long time, and we accept. I think it's Brene Brown or Brene Brown had heard from somebody. I just remember her saying, when you're not fed love off of a silver spoon, you learn to lick it off of a knife. And we accepted the scraps for so long. I'm like so close to tears. You and I both are the definition of accepting the scraps from people, the scraps of their love and affection for so long, until one day we were like, you know what? It hurts me to accept so little from you. And I would rather have nobody showing me anything than for me to continue to accept that treatment from you.
And the hardest part is you don't give them scraps. You give them prime rib, top-notch love and all the attention, all the everything that they want. And you give it as a promissory note that they would reciprocate in kind. And so when they don't, Brittany, that shit hurts. And sometimes it takes years to figure out that you've been pouring in and pouring out of your own cup into them, but you've been getting nothing back. This is why you and I work as friends. We pour to as much as we receive from one another. And it's great. And it's why I adore you in my life. I don't want to ever lose you in my life for that reason, because you're one of the few people that I feel like I have poured greatly into and I have received greatly back from. We're like right in that like even Steven of what we've done for each other. Sometimes a little more at times, sometimes a little, but it's balanced out. And now we do a podcast together. We do write books together. And I just wish people could have the kind of friendship you and I have, because it's rare to find somebody that you pour all this stuff into, and then they're like, little bits and pieces of crumbs on the knife back at you. And that's no fun. After a while, that shit gets old.
Yeah. Speaking of that, something that Wildman has said, and it's like the very beginning of personal development, the very beginning of emotional work is match energy for energy. Like I tell people that if you're just starting and you don't know where to start in your relationships, if you're trying to grow in your relationships, match them. What they give you, you match that. And that's very beginning stuff. That's like teaching a toddler, okay? Like we gotta progress past that at some point and not match people for who they are, but be who you are authentically as yourself, and don't worry about who they are being towards you and separating yourself. But in the very beginning, you can match energy for energy.
And one of the ways that manifests itself over time, and I'm going to use our relationship as an example, is some days, you guys, I get on the phone with Britt, and she's just and 20 minutes later she's like, oh my gosh, I'm taking up all the time. No, you keep going. I want to hear, because next time Jimmy may go and Brittany goes and so we have to play this. It's not always going to be equal in the moment, but it does in the end wash out. And look, if at some point it feels like one person's dominating, you can kind of say, hey, can I share some things from my life? But we've never had to do that, you and I. We always balance it out. But you always feel so bad. Oh my gosh, I've taken up all the time. I'm like, shut up, stop doing that.
That is okay, here you go. I'm going to one step deeper myself. I have dug through that. I know why I do that, because I was told that I was an inconvenience as a child. My parents never had time for me. The people in my life never had time for me. They made me feel guilty for ever having a story or ever having anything to say. And so now that I have found a friend who will listen to me and listen to the intricate details of I'm a storyteller. Like, my story could be like this short, but I will make it a fucking novel
Yes.
because I never got the chance to tell my story. I know it's coming.
I don't need the Netflix movie. I just want the Cliff's Notes.
I knew it was coming. Yes. I've never had the chance to tell those intricate stories. And so to have a friend who will listen to me, I catch myself. And so I invalidate myself because it was a learned pattern and learned behavior. And I'm thankful to have you as a friend who points it out. Hey, shut up. Just talk. So it's nice.
What's funny is I do enjoy hearing from you, because even if I'm not sharing something from my life, the fact that you trust me enough to want to share and I guess get my feedback and everything and listen, like I'm engaged even in that context, just like you are in my life. And you were there for me many a time with things I was going through. And it was nothing about you, but it was everything about me. But you felt vested in it. You put yourself in my shoes and empathized in that way. And that's another way that you kind of balances out. If you can empathize with the other person, that's love to me. If you empathize with me and you listen, like you asked earlier, how do you feel love? That's it. Like, and it's not hard. It's literally taking an interest in someone enough to care about them, to respect them, to truly love who they are, and vice versa.
Yeah. So as a kid, did you get that at all? Did you ever get anybody that listened to you?
Ooh. That's a hard one because it was so chaotic throughout most of my childhood, very much like yours. I guess if there was any moment when it happened, it would have been living with my mom, very young. Everything changed when I turned 10. That was when the divorce happened with my mom's second husband. And then all chaos broke out after that. Before that, I mean, I was too young. So it's like, you're only going to get just so much respect. As an adult, you're the first one that's ever respected me. At least to the level that I feel like I deserved. I had others be in my life. I've had others say they care, but when push came to shove, they fled. When push came to shove, they didn't give a crap about me. Not like Brittany does. And so now in my life, I pursue friends and relationships with people that, now that I have an example of what it looks like, I have a very high standard. Like my career in my 20s, I'd be right here and I'd always want to be here. I'm right here in relationships and I'm wanting there. And I know I have the capability of there, but I only have one example of it. One great example, but one example of it. And there's other people that care about me. I'm not trying to dismiss that there aren't others. And I have probably 7 or 8 people that could become those kinds of friends. And many of them are trajectorying in that direction. But it's hard, Brittany. It's hard when you haven't seen it for the vast majority of your life. And now I'm 50 years old going, I ain't got much time left, another 40, 50 years, hopefully. I want to make the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in all of my life, I was 18 the first time I had ever met anybody who respected me just as me. Didn't require that I change, didn't require anything of me than just who I was. And that was Wild Man. Yeah, that was my Wild Man, which is why we connected so fast and so quick and got married so fast, because I gave him that same thing. We gave each other that, what we had never experienced. He too, he was 23 and he had never experienced somebody to just love him and accept him as he was. And I didn't praise him. Oh, you're such a hard worker. I love you for that. No, I just love you. If you didn't work another day in your life, I just love you, and I didn't require any of that. And so he was the first person, and I to him, that had experienced that. And so I went in my friendships chasing the same thing. And I'll be honest with you, chasing that and wanting a friend who would be as vulnerable with me as I was with them. And I never got it. I ended up losing friendship after friendship because they were all these surface level things. And I honored that's what they wanted and needed in their life. But I have never been a surface level person. And so when you and I don't think it was the first talk, maybe it was the second or the third. Like both of us were like, this is weird, but I like it because there was just this level of vulnerability that both of us had with each other almost immediately.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. I think it was, we first started talking about the trauma stuff. Like those of us who have been through trauma, and a lot of our listeners, you've been through trauma.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why people feel a connection to us that listen to our podcast and that will read our book, is we feel kind of that respect and that love that we never had. And so, it wasn't the fasting and the keto stuff. Like I could do that in my sleep, and it really didn't connect us a little bit. It's what drew you and drew us together, but it's not what kept us together as friends. Yeah.
I'm gonna be lame for a second. I'm gonna be lame. We became friends because of the one step deeper. Like what you and I are doing here is very, very small in comparison to the hours and hours that you and I have. You've told a story, and I pointed out things to you that I was like, this, and then you mimicking kind of what. And doing the same thing, you would listen to a story and you would point something out, and I'd be like, God dang it, Jimmy, quit. Okay, I did not call to get therapy today. But it had become that. And so the people who listen to the podcast, I know they get that kind of value out of what we do here. And I really hope that they see value. I struggle with that, do people really value what it is that I do here? That's my own trauma. But I love all the listeners, everybody that listens, everybody that does this, and like everybody that wants to do the emotion work, wants to do what it is, you opened yourself up to today. I kept it G level. I didn't hit you too hard today.
I got a little more time. Hit me something hard. I want to see full bore Brittany come at me. Oh, and now I put
goodness.
Can't think of something a little harder than G rated. Come on.
Give me I feel or an I am statement about yourself.
Currently or in my life at some point?
Whatever. Just I am or I feel.
I am happy.
Okay. Really?
Which is true.
Fully. That's awesome. So the reason why I asked it to you that way is because a lot of the times people identify I am and I feel, and they get them mixed up. So when you say I am something, so like, for example, I am depressed, you are now identifying yourself as I am depressed. And so you said that I am happy. Hey, that's great. That was a great one to identify yourself as that. But also to remember that that's a feeling. Happiness is a feeling, and it's temporary. And that happiness is wonderful and it's great to identify yourself that way, but to also understand that it's going to come and go. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days. And so to change out, even in that moment, to realize that you are, yes, it's nice to say I am happy, but it's better to say I feel happy and to differentiate. But
let me qualify it, because, and the problem is, all the backstory of this. Like, I have been frustrated. I have felt, get the vernacular right, disjointed. I've had a lot of things in my life the last few years, and I'm now at a point of like what we talked about last week, contentment, in the good way, contentment. And so when I say I am happy, it's like a celebration of all of this culmination of, okay, I'm done with all that stuff. I'm in a good place, mentally, physically. I'm happy. I feel like I'm contributing in the world. I feel like I'm the person I was always meant to be in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you get to that point, call it what you want, but I'm there.
Yeah. And it can become an I am statement, like my word of the year is becoming. And for the longest time, I have felt like I was becoming what I was supposed to be. And this year, I am. I just am. And it has moved over to an identity. And I'm okay with feeling an identity and a connection to who it is that I am becoming. And just like you feel some kind of way that for the first time in your life, you can identify yourself as happy. I think that's beautiful, that it's not just something that you feel temporarily. It is something that you become.
And without all the need for lots of things. I used to attach happiness to, I will be happy when I have a relationship, when I things, when I get this success. I don't see it that way anymore. No, I am happy.
Yes.
And those things can come, but if they come or they don't come, it's irrelevant. I'm happy. And I'm going to be happy. And I don't need anything to come into my life to give me happiness, because then that creates an unhealthy relationship with whatever that thing is. And it's a lot of work. A lot of the things that, like what we're talking about here today with this, by the way, we're running out of time. We need to wrap this up. But this is the point of where we're trying to get people to go to. I want them to get to that point of, you can have an I am or I feel statement and it be resolute because you've done the work.
Yes. I love it. Absolutely. I 100% agree that those I feel statements and I am statements can become a lifelong thing, and a good thing to identify yourself with that.
Yes. So guys,
thank you for your vulnerability today.
Of course. Unconventional episode 53, Brittany Davis doing her One Step Deeper thing with yours truly. And we're going to ask you if you want to do this with her. It's on the agenda if you want to reach out, and we'll have Miss Britt tell you how you can do that here in a minute. But take us home.
All right, guys, onestepdeeperpodcast.com. You can find all the past episodes there. Same thing as every week. YouTube, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find that's the first place you can find the episode every single week. If I gotta find the first episode. I gotta listen to it before anybody else. That's where you're gonna find that. YouTube, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It does go up on Facebook and Instagram as well. Instagram, One Step Deeper Podcast. There it goes up on Jimmy's page as well, Living Low Carb Man, and then I put up the tidbit, Becoming Brittany Lee. We are a regular podcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, ALEXA, and leave us a review. We love to hear from you guys. And just like Jimmy was saying, if this episode was intriguing to you and you want to kind of do this emotion work too, you want to kind of be willing to be vulnerable here and open, I would love to have you. I would love to do what it is that I do here with anybody willing to let me. Like I said earlier in the show, I love doing this kind of stuff. And I sometimes can hit you between the eyeballs. Sometimes it's a little bit easier. I never really know. I just let it come as it is, and I feel it out and observe. But yeah, we love you guys. Thank you for listening.
And the One Step Deeper Journal, the foundation's coming very soon, guys. Literally, as of the recording of this, the very tail end. We're trying to make sure this book is as good as it can possibly be, because when it hits your hands, we don't want you to be distracted by mistakes in the format or the misspelled words. So we're being anal retentive about making sure it's as good as possible. But we're hoping about a month from now, late February, early March, we will have it out. So thank you so much. And Brittany, thank you for, I was on the verge of crying a couple of times, but I didn't cry. You made me vulnerable, and I'm okay being vulnerable. That's what we do. That's what we do in our personal conversations. So this was a lot of fun today. So thank you. And guys, thank you. We'll see you again next week.
OneStepDeeperPodcast.com.